Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Ethos Online. Again, this is a place where you can be, belong, and become the very best version of yourselves. So whether you're again joining us from your living room, your porch, wherever you are, thank you so much for walking with us. In the description below, you'll find a place where you can donate, and we'd love for you to continue supporting what we do. So please consider helping us walk with us in this journey where we create really good content, videos, blogs, podcasts, all of it. Ethos Online, Ethos Gatherings, Ethos Living Rooms, all of it. Help us continue sharing these messages because we think it's worth sharing. We think the message of Jesus is actually more relevant today than ever. And as always, please click the donate or the subscribe button and also the little bell. Click that and you'll be notified every time something new comes up. So everyone, welcome again. Welcome to Ethos. And many of you right now, you're kind of in isolation and you might have a little more time, or if you're a mom and dad, you might have less time. But either way, thank you for joining right here, right now with these messages, especially this one geared toward the Sermon on the Mount. This has been a really exceptional one. Great conversations. It's been fun. Before we start, though, I've been trying to weed through some of our emails because it's just kind of been piling up. And so I had two more questions that came in that I thought I'd love to just respond to these. And two of them, these two are pretty controversial. And you might find yourself saying, I don't know, I don't know what I think about that. And if you find yourself in that place, that's okay. That means you're in the liminal space, you're asking the question, and you might land differently than me, which is totally fine. But what we're hoping here is that you begin having the conversation. Whatever the question is, maybe it's going to open up some interesting concepts for you. Hopefully you'll be able to appreciate the thing even better. So here's the first question that came up, and this is one I actually get a lot. And I'm going to give you my answer. It's my honest answer. It's not one that's veiled or whatever. I'm just giving you the honest truth of where I am with it. So here it is. First one is this: do you believe in a literal heaven? Do you believe in a literal heaven? So in my journey, I got to the place where I realized I don't have space for a literal hell. So for me, I began to understand when the Bible's speaking of, when Jonah goes down to the depths, and they use the word hell there, Hades, Jonah didn't actually go down to Hades. That's not Hades. That's not a literal place. The idea there was, for the Hebrews, death. Hades was a place where you die. Right? So Jonah, and again, this is a bigger metaphor here. A guy being swallowed by a whale. Most of us understand if you were really swallowed by a whale, stomach acid, all of that, you're not going to last long. Yeah, you're just not. And so we understand this is probably a bigger metaphor for something else. And again, we've gone through that in our video series before. This is a metaphor for something bigger for Israel. So we understand the usage there of Hades, hell, right? This place, this death is actually a metaphor for death. Yeah, so he comes out of death, right? And he comes back to life, and he gets this chance to redeem himself and share a message of hope to his enemies. That's the idea there. And so as I studied hell deeper and deeper, I began to understand that this whole idea of hell that we have today, the Christian hell, if you were bad, you go there. If you're good, you go there. That's pretty Roman. That wasn't how Jews believed at all. They had no space for a literal place where you die and you go and you get tormented forever. That was more metaphor for them. And even when Jesus, in the gospel messages, he talks about hell, he points to a place, a garbage dump. And again, this place, this garbage dump, it was a literal place right there. But he's not saying when you die, that's where you go. He's saying the life you live right now can either look like this or like a garbage dump. Which do you choose? That was the idea. That was the deeper metaphor. It wasn't this place down there. He was pointing to the garbage dump. Yeah. So again, because hell has become very metaphorical for me, because I've understood that's how the Jews viewed it. You also have to understand when Jesus talks about kingdom of heaven, when he talks about heaven, he's not talking about the Roman idea of something up there, right? That was very Roman. That was the gods of Olympus. Right? That's where they sat. They sat on the clouds and they looked down, and periodically they'd go down and they'd mingle. They'd mingle. They'd have affairs with these humans, and you'd get demigods and all of that. Sometimes they do good things for the humans. Sometimes they'd punish the humans. That's how they viewed heaven and hell. So for the Hebrews, though, you had a couple different ideas about what happens. One group said, yeah, we think there must be something. We think that maybe like when you die, you're going to have like a time of judgment maybe, and then you somehow become part of everything. That was one side of it. And then the other side, the Sadducees, they said, we don't know. We don't know. And at the end of the day, not worth arguing over. And so truly, with the Jewish people, the afterlife always ended, that conversation, that debate always ended with, we don't know. We don't know. We'll know when we get there. And so my perspective lately is I question this idea of living on an asteroid. I question this idea of being in the clouds in a state of perfection, meaning like I never grow, I never change, there's no disruption. I question that now. But again, I can't disprove or prove it. So I'm at the place where I kind of take up the Jewish understanding of, I'll know when I know. But this life is not about getting there. This life is about living fully here. And that's how I view it today. If that's literal, I guess we'll know. For now, I'm going to say I'm going to focus on this beautiful life and do the very best I can to be the best human being I can be. Question number 2 is this. Because we've been moving through this series and we've made the connections to Jesus and Moses, I'm not surprised this question came up. The question was Moses an actual person? So interestingly enough, Jewish scholars, most of them will say Moses was a messianic archetype. So again, an archetype is like we think that the story, the narrative of us, we take all of these characteristics and we put them on this individual. Again, Moses, Messiah, right? Moses, the one that brings people out of. That's the idea behind Moses. And so do I think he was a literal person? Maybe there was a guy named Moses. Did Moses do all of the things it said? Jewish rabbis, scholars say probably not. This is probably a metaphor, a story that's been built up. It's a fish story that got bigger and bigger and bigger, and it was added after Babylonian captivity. That's when the story is written. Maybe, maybe not. We'll probably never know. But again, for me, I always look at the deeper message of Moses. Moses is a character who says, look, we need to step away from slavery into freedom. And so in order to step away from slavery into freedom, certain things have to change. In fact, certain rituals can happen that can remind us of freedom and slavery. And so you see the Moses individual, the character, the messianic archetype, whatever it was. For me, again, it's less about, I care less and less about literal. And for me, I care more and more about what it means. So that's my answer. Whether you love it or hate it, email me. Let's have a conversation. Interesting discussion to have. So moving along, we're talking about the Sermon on the Mount. Again, Jesus and Moses both go up on the mountain. They talk about Torah. And they talk about the law, right? These 10 commandments, how to live life in harmony with each other, how to be fully present to yourself, right? How to be at peace with yourself and your neighbors and the divine. That's the deeper picture there. So again, the Sermon on the Mount is a deeper critique on the law, and again, how to live life fully, shalom, right here, right now. And again, context is everything. We understand historically. This is all written, right? The gospel message is written just after the temple is destroyed. Mark being the first. John will come, 100 years later or so. But again, Mark is the first one that's going to sweep in. He's going to share this message because they've lost everything. And they're saying, where's our temple? Where's our hope? And the message of Jesus is, your temple, your hope is found here now. You are wearing Judaism on your sleeve. Everywhere you go, you carry the temple because you are the place the divine happens. The kingdom of heaven happens here, everywhere you go. And that's a really beautiful message when it seems like everything's been taken away from you. So again, context, everything. Jesus shares the law 2.0, another version. So we went through all of the happy are you if you do this. So today we're going to step into Matthew 6:22, and this is how it reads. The lamp of the body is the eye. If therefore your eye is good, all your body shall be enlightened. But if your eye is evil, all your body shall be darkened. If then the light that is within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? So ask anyone. They'll probably give you a couple different interpretations of this. And for me, I grew up with hearing mainly it revolved around purity culture. Yeah. Stay sexually pure, right? Don't allow your eye to go the wrong way, and that's when we talk about pornography and the evils of pornography. Be careful, little eyes, what you see. That's typically how this verse was often used for teenagers, and I would even argue adults. And it even kind of brings in this idea back then of you have to be righteous, you have to be good, you have to have it all together. And that light, then you can be a light to others. This idea often, you'll see people kind of do some stretching with this verse. And the truth is, if you understood the verse fully, within the context, it actually really pops. It really hums. It makes sense. One rabbi writes this when considering this specific verse. He writes this: the book of Mattityahu, and again, that's how you would say Matthew. Matthew is the Greek way of saying Matthew, just like Jesus is the Greek way of saying Yeshua. Mattityahu, right? The book of Mattityahu was originally written in Hebrew, as whoever translated into the Greek was not aware of what the term evil eye meant. They simply translated the phrase word for word, which loses its meaning in the Greek and English. Most translations miss the mark. Whether NIV, KJV, or New Revised, they rarely take into account the actual Hebrew culture. And again, I find that interesting because I will have people periodically ask, well, which translation, why all of that? For me, I always go back to the Greek and Hebrew. For me, I always go back to who is writing this. If they're writing this, why are they writing this? And when you begin to understand that, the Hebrew and the culture and all of it, it changes things. It actually takes on deeper meaning. But if you just take it word by word, like most of the translations today are, you actually miss some really deep, deep stuff. Sometimes you actually miss the overall arching idea behind it. And so what did it mean? Here we go. The idea of light. It was not literal light. And it's definitely not the kind of light that, like, you do this, you're a good person, you get to go up there. That wasn't the point. Here's what light meant. It's actually this idiom. It means the thing that brings life. So whenever you have light mentioned in the Bible, it's always referring to the things that bring life. Those are the things I align myself with. And so whenever you have the eye mentioned, especially in like metaphorical ways, Proverbs, Psalm, all these different books in the Bible, what you'll find is most of the time they're using metaphor. And so again, I meant setting my sight on those things. So setting my sight on the light. So you have light and the eyes, and they both work together. Yeah, makes sense. So when you look at like Proverbs 22:9, it says this: He who has a good eye is blessed, for he gives his bread to the poor. So notice that. What are the things that bring life? Well, in Proverbs, and in many other places in the Bible, what you'll find is good eyes that are focused on light, they have actions that follow. And the actions that follow, someone who has their eyes focused on the light, the things that bring life, the actions that follow usually fit with helping the poor, the widow, the foreigner. Those are the things that follow when you have a good eye, right? Focused on the good things. Now watch Proverbs 23. Do not eat the bread of one having an evil eye. Yeah, don't participate in things that an evil eye, right? Someone who has their eyes focused on things that bring death, don't have any part to play in what they're doing. Don't eat what they're baking, right? Like that's the deeper idea here. So again, good and evil eye metaphor. What you'll see here, the good eye always indicates like this generous person, this person who is generously giving, always finding ways to help others. That's what the good eye is always indicating. Whenever you look in the Bible, in the Torah, you'll find over and over again, the good eye is the generous eye. The bad eye, often it's the stingy person. It's the person unwilling to give. It's the person unwilling to share what they have. So generous eye, stingy eye. You guys see it? Again, that's the metaphor here. And again, if you just took Matthew 6 and you just read it at face value, you would miss this completely. But when you understand the culture, the context, you understand the idioms used here, whenever a Jewish person read about an eye, right, read about light, immediately those are the connections they made. And so again, it's so important for us to get that today. So if I were to rephrase the words of Jesus into current, present day words, vocabulary. And again, I'm not trying to write my own Bible or any of that. I'm just simply trying to bring it back down to basically what would it mean for us today. If I were to do that, this is what I might write. If your outlook is to be generous, a good eye, then your body, your life will be full of light. But if you are stingy, evil eye, then you will be full of darkness. Yeah. Same thing, same concept. I'm just using more modern day words. So when I think about this today, like the people with the good eyes, the people who are generous, that are loving, who are finding ways to give. And again, what a contrast between the religious people of that day. The religious elite, the Pharisees, rarely gave generously. They only gave when it was opportune for them, when they could gain something in return. But the generous one, right? The generous eye, the person who is focused on what brings life, they are giving generously when there is a need. And so when I look at what's going on today, specifically right now in the environment all of this COVID stuff has created, I see it everywhere. I see the generous eye everywhere. Here's a moment. San Diego, I was there not that long ago. In San Diego, there's a landlord. And again, a lot of people are struggling with paying bills because they're not working. And so how do you pay bills and groceries and everything else? How do you pay the rent and the mortgage when you're just not making any money? It's difficult, and a lot of us are in that place. And so this landlord, he had a heart for his people. And so he noticed that, out of the 18 different people he had in this apartment complex, 3 of them in one day sent him a message. They said, "Look, Jeff, we can't pay. Is there anything that we can do? Is there any, because again, we'll work, we'll do whatever, but we have no work right now. When we get work, we'll immediately give it to you. It's either we feed our kids or we give you some rent. We don't have enough rent." And so here's what he said. And again, I find this so interesting. He said this: I have only owned the building less than a year, he said. I went to bed that night thinking of these tenants, how they have to move out. It is not really them who failed. It is me who failed. I'm going to read it one more time because I kind of butchered it a little bit. I have only owned the building less than a year, he said. I went to bed that night thinking, if these tenants have to move out, it's not really them who failed. It is me who failed. Oh, isn't that beautiful? He so much introspective thinking there. I want to be the generous one. I don't want to be the stingy one. And if they have to move out because I am choosing to be stingy, not generous, then it is not them who failed. It is I that failed. Whew. He goes on, he said, it was the right thing to do. Because again, what he decided to do, he allowed them 3 months. He went to the bank and he worked out this thing where he was able to offer them 3 months, no rent. Isn't that beautiful? He went out of his way to go to the bank and work that out. He could have said, no, you owe me the money. Give it to me now. But no, he went to the bank. He figured out a way to work with the bank system there. And he's able to give them 3 months of rent free. And he said this: it was the right thing to do, and I feel good inside knowing that my actions helped bring relief to my renters. Notice that the inward journey, it made me feel good on the inside. I didn't get a bunch of rewards. Yes, he's in the paper, but at the end of the day, he lost money. but it was the right thing to do. I find that so beautiful. Here's another one. My family actually was in the news. Not for anything bad. We were in the news, and it was really kind of cool. The local news, TV. What happened is there's this photographer in our area, Jean Wolford. And Jean, what she noticed is a lot of families and neighbors missed the interaction together. And they weren't able to get out and do as much. And so she said, look, I want to offer something to you. I'm going to go to every house I can that is able to do it, and I'm going to take a picture of your family COVID style, right? So she said, get out the toilet paper, whatever you're doing in the middle of all this isolation. Try to set up a little scene in front of your house. I'm going to drive by and take pictures, and then I'm going to post it onto Facebook so that all the neighbors can see and interact and make comments and see each other again, right? Interact. And so she did this without getting any money. And so, again, I thought it was interesting. She said this after this experience: I wanted to bring a little light to families and communities during such a dark time. I wanted to do the generous action. I wanted to give of myself in order to bring light to others. That's the idea here that Jesus shares over and over again. And it's really pretty profound. And so my question to you is really simple. What eye are you giving your community? I think for some people, it's the good eye. It's the generous eye. It's the one that says, I want to live fully, and I want to help others live fully too. Then there's the bad eye, right? And there's the idea that there's the eye that says, no, it's on you. We're all our own island, right? I'm stingy. I'm going to do my thing. You do your thing. And then whoever survives, survival of the fittest, right? And then there's the stink eye. There's the judgmental eye that says, ugh, you can't make it. Ugh, what eye do you give to your community, to your family? Are you generous? Are you loving in the way that you give time and resources, energy? Which eye are you giving? Because I think that's so important, especially for a Jesus follower. If your outlook is to be generous, a good eye, then your body, your life will be full of light. Everywhere you go, when you are so generous, it happens inside, right? But if you are stingy, you've got the evil stink eye, right? The bad eye, then you will be full of darkness. Because again, that lone journey of just me, it gets pretty old pretty quick. Yeah. There's not a lot of life in that when it's all just centered around meeting my needs. That gets old quick. So, of course, the question is, how do we live this, right? Because we can talk about this stuff all day, but how do we actually apply it? Here are some interesting things I saw for families, and I thought this might be an interesting one for you and your partner, or if you've got a family. This might be a fun one to try, especially in the middle of the isolation. I know California, you might be 2 more months. Here in Idaho, we're hoping the end of the month we're going to go back to normal, but we'll see what happens, right? First one was this, and I thought this was kind of fun. Save and give. I thought this was a cool idea. I'm just going to read this. This was from a psychologist who said, it's so important to be generous in days like this because community needs to bond together. She said, decide as a family who or what you want to donate your money to and what target goal you want to reach. You can make one of those cool posters that help you record how you are doing and meeting your goal. Maybe you and your kids can donate your soda or coffee money into the jar and also learn about sacrifice. The idea here is we put a little out there. We put what we can, and then we find something we can donate to. And what that does is it teaches me as an adult that there's something bigger than me, that giving is part of being in community. And if you have kids, this is a really beautiful moment where you can say, look, kids, I'm going to model it for you. And you can actually participate in this right here, right now. I think that's cool. Here's another one. My family and I, we've been building vegetable gardens. And I thought, this is cool. Especially, I've even got a neighbor down the street who built a herb garden, and he put it right next to the community path. And he told me and my wife, he said, look, Tony and Danielle, look, I want you guys, anytime you need some herbs, feel free to pick some. This is for community. This is for everybody. I said, really? Do you need me to drop in money, right? He said, no, I want to give back. And I thought, that's so beautiful, right? We're part of a community. Yeah, I'll wear gloves, right? But she says this: planting a garden could be a fun spring activity for your family. It allows you to teach them how to grow plants, but also sustainability and nature. And again, when I'm learning to grow things, I'm learning also, like we talked about last week, things don't grow immediately. It takes time and love. And again, when you give certain gifts to people, especially community, you want them to be from the heart. You want them to be something that you've taken time and energy for. And what better opportunity than to give them some vegetables, right? Beautiful. I think that's a cool idea. This one is happening right now, visiting a nursing home. There's so many people that are locked up in nursing homes right now, and they have no connection to the outside world. And so people are going to the windows, and they're writing little things on paper, and they're just saying hello. Sometimes they'll even like open the screen and people will read to these individuals. But either way, they're letting the people in community who are basically experiencing a lot of isolation, more so than the rest of us. And it's just, it's painful. It kind of removes you from life itself. And so this is a really beautiful activity I think you can do right here, right now. And here's the last one. This is happening in my neighborhood. There are a couple neighbors who they stockpiled toilet paper before all of this happened. They just always buy lots of toilet paper. So they had a lot of extra toilet paper. And so their girls actually went around and they just asked people door to door, do you guys need any toilet paper? We've got some extra. And it kind of has set this precedent of, do you need anything? Because we have something. Or if you're lacking this, I think down the street they have that. Tony, you can borrow Ian's weed whacker, whatever. It's opening up some really beautiful potential for learning to have the good eye, learning to give, learning to share. So again, so beautiful. Live in the generous place. Don't live in scarcity. Live at the place of the good eye. Look at the ways in which you can bring life more abundantly right here, right now. That's the message Jesus shares there. So thank you so much again for joining us. As always, please consider giving ethos-church.org/donate. Please give a monthly donation. It really does help us continue doing what we're doing. Also, Ethos Living Room, we'd love to have you present every first and third of the month. We come together online at 11 a.m. West Coast time, and we actually discuss some of this even deeper. What it means to be human. Many people from faith to no faith, different religious orientations, all of it. It's so powerful to have discussion. You don't sit through a sermon. You're not being talked at. You're actually getting an opportunity to hear other perspectives around the different living room tables. And so it's so fun. Be a part of it. Email me, TonyWuerfel@gmail.com if you'd like to be a part of it. And as always, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the little bell. Love y'all. Thank you much for joining us. And we'll see you next week. Take care.